A House committee on Tuesday, September 2nd, uploaded 34,000 pages of government documents on the Epstein investigation, making them available to the public after months of debate. So, is the long wait for the Epstein files finally over? I'm Susan Ferricchio, senior politics reporter for the Washington Times, and this is my question and answer on the current state of the Epstein files case. They haven't all been released yet. The House Oversight Committee sent a subpoena to the Justice Department asking for all of the files, and the Justice Department has been on a rolling basis providing these files to the committee. And yesterday, the House Oversight Committee announced that they would start uploading these files. The first 34,000 pages came online on Tuesday night, and they were released page by page. More will be released in the future.
We're in the process of uploading those documents for full transparency so everyone in America can see those documents.
So far, sifting through these files, I've come across thousands of pages of court documents. There were investigations into Epstein prior to his suicide in a jail cell in 2019. And there was also a grand jury indictment, and all those files were released. It also included video recordings of police as they entered the Epstein Palm Beach home. And there were video recordings of the jail where Epstein was held in 2019 in New York City, and where he was found dead in what they later ruled was a suicide. That was among many of the items released on Tuesday. Obviously, there were flight logs that we've talked about in the past that showed very prominent people flying on Epstein's jets. There were additional flight logs that were included in the latest document dump, among them President Clinton and Bill Gates. These were flights within the United States. These luminaries have already disclosed that they flew on Epstein's jet years ago, so there were no big surprises there. One thing that we didn't find in the Epstein files, and people are wondering, what was included and not included and what was included in the Epstein files, there were no indications of a client list or any kind of list at all indicating who Epstein may have farmed out or trafficked these young women to. There were no other names of individuals, no references to any of his very famous friends. It was all about Epstein as the victimizer and Epstein as the perpetrator. So all of these documents so far pretty much are limited to Epstein. On Wednesday, many of the Epstein survivors gathered on the Capitol steps and spoke to the press about their hopes for further release of information. And they were asked what their thoughts were on why the government hasn't released the files fully yet, and also whether or not they had names of these prominent victimizers and whether they'd be willing to release those names. And the victims said that, they weren't ready to do so, but they were going to try to put together some lists of people and decide then what to do about it. Now, they're represented by a law firm, and those lawyers spoke afterwards and said the reason why they're not talking about specific wealthy individuals who they may have seen hanging out with Epstein is because they are afraid for their safety and that they are afraid that they'll be sued. So that was a really important thing to learn, that there may be names out there and that the victims don't feel comfortable naming them at this point.
I am a survivor of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein, and I'm here today in solidarity with all of my survivor sisters because we are tired of our voices not being heard, and in unity, our voices are stronger together.
Congress has been responding to the Epstein files now for months. Lawmakers have been demanding the release of the files, and now it's really coming to a head on Capitol Hill. There's a bipartisan push to force a vote in the House. And they can gather enough support to do that. They're pretty close to getting enough support to force a vote on the House floor that would compel the Justice Department to release all of the Epstein files. And that vote hasn't happened yet. There's a determination amongst a small group of lawmakers to really make that happen. It's possible that it will happen this month, and we'll keep our eye out for that. And at this point, the House Oversight Committee is also moving to publicize more of these files. They are expecting another tranche from the Justice Department, which they plan to upload and make public. In addition, they are planning to look at bank records now to try to, as the chairman of the committee said, follow the money and figure out if they can determine other victimizers through bank records. They also plan to interview some very prominent people who we know Epstein associated with, among them Bill Clinton. And they also plan to speak to others who were involved in Epstein's investigation when he took a guilty plea to prostitution with an underage person back in 2008. So this investigation is definitely continuing on Capitol Hill, probably will yield more information going forward, and we're expecting additional files from the Justice Department. So this is a story that will keep developing and more information will come out. I expect to see more files be made public, and I also expect to hear some information about testimony from people who knew Epstein and those who were involved in investigating him in the past. And that's all happening on Capitol Hill in September and in October. So we're going to hear more from people who knew Epstein, and I think we'll actually probably be hearing more from victims. They spoke out for many for the first time today on the Capitol steps, and they expressed a determination to get the truth out and to make their own list, as they said, of people who they feel should be made public who were involved with Epstein. So that's going to, I think, reveal more information in the future that the public has been demanding when it comes to this Epstein case. But I don't think we're ever going to see an official client list that everybody's talking about. I think that that's definitely not going to ever happen, but that we will see potentially more information from the victims and from the Justice Department. For the Washington Times, I'm Susan Ferricchio. Thanks for watching.